My view is you have to reject the extreme on either side, whether it is from the racist perspective or from the extremist who's advocating a caliphate. Neither of them have a place here, but the answer to it, other than when it steps over to the pure security issue when it does become a matter for police and intelligence, the answer to it is to advocate and extend the hand for liberalism, for broad stream acceptance of differences. That goes back to my point about the best of Australia. And yes, Anthony's right. What we saw yesterday was the dark side of the community, but it is not representative of the overall Australia. So do I think that, there are downsides? Absolutely. Do I think that as a global example of multiculturalism, we do it pretty much better than almost anybody else.
Okay, what about the point that Tasneem just made about the previous government, about the us and them language, as she put it, coming from mainstream politicians? Has that changed? Is it something from the past now that you have a different leader?
I respectfully don't accept the starting
Team
proposition.
Australia was the term that came to my mind.
But, I do say this, that of course each Prime Minister brings a different approach. Malcolm Turnbull's approach is a very embracing one. He has deliberately spent time with as many different parts of the community as possible, and he has chosen his words very, very carefully, but in a heartfelt way of reaching out. And so that's what we are consciously, deliberately and sincerely attempting to do.
Are you saying now as opposed to then?
Look, it's a different emphasis from a different Prime Minister.
Tasneem, what did you jump in?
I was going to say, I mean, definitely the language has been more measured by Minister Turnbull, I would agree. But then we're still getting the comments from the likes of Scott Morrison and Peter Dutton in recent weeks relating even to the post-Paris incident about, well, we need to select refugees based on their faith and Christian ones might be given preference, etc. We know that with the Melton rally on the weekend, in the days leading up to it, an individual from the Reclaim Australia mob was found to have possessed weapons and bomb-making material. Now, he wasn't arrested on terror charges, interestingly, but I suspect if he'd been from another group, he might have been.
One of the things that Tasneem and I actually discussed before coming on air was of jointly going out and meeting with young people in some of the suburbs of Melbourne from the Islamic community, working with them jointly, and we will sometime after Parliament goes down and before Christmas. And to have somebody like this who can bridge some of the divides and gaps, I think is a very valuable part of this program, and it gives us a chance as parliamentary representatives to broaden and to be part of a community that perhaps feels under stress.
All right, it's time to move on to...
sorry, yes. One small point, and picking up on something Anthony said about the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots, along those lines. My personal strategy regarding fighting bigotry is to concentrate on my own community, on my own people, the problems within our communities, on the understanding, on the assumption, if you want. But I think it's a correct perspective, that there is a lot more diversity within our communities than differences between our communities. The disagreements that I have with other Greeks are much more powerful, let's say, than the disagreements that I have with the average German, the average Australian, the average Muslim, the average American. Instead of pointing fingers across community divides or lines, it is important to take responsibility for our own communities, for our own people. So, for instance, when it comes to the Cypriot issue, I'm much more eager to concentrate my criticism, my slings and arrows, on the intolerance that I see amongst the Greek side of the divide, than to do that by pointing fingers on the other side. And I think that this is a strategy that could work if all of us adopted it.
All right.